In order to grant you a review of this tale, I must first roll a 5 or better with this non-D&D regulated die. Tis a 2. Well, that... Oh, actually, that means I can't do the review. Well, the die has spoken. And as always, keep your hopes high, you stress low. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today our movie in the middle is Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves is the newest fantasy based off the titular game in which a ragtag team of outlaws and outcasts band together for the biggest and most honorable robbery. It stars Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Rege-Jean Page, Justice Smith, Sophia Lillis, and Hugh Grant. All right, I'm gonna put this down. But isn't this so cool? Like, just look at it. Oh my god, I found this just like this in the woods. I was meant for a quest. When I first saw the trailer for this movie, I honestly thought it was one of those movies that was just going to be passed up. It was going to be fine, probably get like a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes, and people are going to be like, it's fun, but it's not really that great. I'm going to be honest with you. This is one of the best movies I have seen so far this year, and that's really interesting considering most of the movies I've seen this year so far have been really good. The first and probably biggest high is that it is just so much fun, and it is hilarious. I was cracking up at every scene in this movie. Chris Pine in particular, I don't think I've ever seen him in something where he had such like a comedic role, but his timing is so good. I loved him in this, and every character is so much fun, and I loved all of them in this. I thought every single character in this movie was just so much fun, so great. The main 4 or 5 people kind of in this party, I guess, they are just great. Honestly, if you liked Guardians of the Galaxy, you're going to really love this group because they have that ragtag feel of people who just keep failing at things, but when they come together, they just use all of their skills, even though it looks like they don't really have that many. They put their heads together, they put their magic together, and man, they are just so much fun. But they're also wholesome, and they look out for each other, and they like become this family. Oh my god, I loved it. I loved it so much. All of the characters were great. Specifically, the sorcerer, I loved him because his whole arc is just, you're not that bad at what you do. And man, he has like this cool spell disc thing like on his belt where he can like spin it around and pull out a spell and then like shoot it. I want the crap out of that thing. There's also another character, this red wizard, who I didn't think that they were actually going to be that dark with this movie from the trailer, but she was pretty terrifying. There is one scene where she does like, it's not a jump scare, but it's like a specific thing that I was like, whoa, that creeped me out a bit. But not only are the characters really great, but the writing and just where they take the story is so much fun. They go in so many different directions and use so many things from the game, which I'll get to in a second, but just the way that they journeyed through this quest, and they had so much information, but they gave it to you pretty well without it feeling expository, because honestly, it was just really clever in how they did a lot of things, and they keep coming up with problems and solutions, but like every direction that they go in is just another how are we going to get out of this. And the thing I appreciated most about this movie is that there's a lot of instances of visual storytelling, which sounds stupid because it's a movie, but like what I mean is they're not telling you things. Like there is a lot of information that they have to give, and they do it really well. But there are moments, especially one towards the end, which in most other movies that were just kind of like a big blockbuster or whatever, they would have just said, I'm gonna do this, and it would have been meaningful and fine. But in this, I was really impressed. They didn't say the thing that I thought they were gonna say to like tie in this whole theme, this whole like arc of the movie with one of the characters. They used an image that they flash back to earlier on to tell you that. And it was just I was really impressed because a lot of blockbusters don't do that nowadays. Now, obviously, all of this is well and good, but if you are a serious D&D fan, you're wondering, how do they do in translating D&D into a movie and putting everything in and making it accurate? Well, I will tell you this. Shockingly enough, I have only played D&D a few times. I have actually only played it like 2 or 3 times, but I have played it a few times, so I kind of know, all the rules and the process and everything. I'm a rogue halfling named Reed, who has a best friend who is a half-giant named Youthful. And I kind of have this sort of situationship with a wood elf named Nivian. She's good with a bow and arrow. I wonder how she's doing. So because of my limited experience, I didn't really have that mindset going into the movie with, I know everything, so I'm looking out for this. I was having more of just the mindset of, is this going to be a fun movie? Is it going to make sense? How's the world building going to be? But some friends pointed out to me later on some things that did make a lot of sense in regards to how well they translated this, because honestly, a lot of games and video game movies recently haven't been that great. But apparently, from what I know and what they've told me, they did it very well. Like, they have a lot of situations where, like I was saying earlier, they have problems that come up that you would never have expected in the first place. It should be like, okay, we go here, we here. And obviously in movies you have conflict and resolution, but they had a lot of things where it's like you wouldn't have even expected it to go that way, but it makes sense, and they're able to get out of it in clever ways, which was really fun. They also have somebody who, I didn't even know this was a thing, a DMPC. For those of you who are like me and don't know as much, it's the Dungeon Master Player character. That's where the DM basically plays as a character himself in like a few spots. And they even have instances where it's like, if you have this D&D eye about it, there's characters who like can't do certain things in a scene where you think, oh, they should. Why are they messing up so badly? Well, it's like if you were rolling dice and you weren't getting the numbers you needed and you couldn't do the thing. It's just really interesting. And like even just the world building, the amount of places that they went, the locations, how they looked, the amount of classes and races and everything that they used, they fleshed this out really well, and they had them all in there, and I was very impressed, and it was just honestly really relaxing and just another fun, super big fantasy movie to watch. And this goes along with it too, but the music, I mean, any fantasy music is just beautiful. I love it, but they did a really, really great job with that as well. My only real middle is like some of the CGI was questionable here and there, but honestly, it wasn't like that bad. There was maybe 1 or 2 scenes where I was like, okay, that doesn't look the best, but the rest I thought were fine. Really, it's just kind of that CGI that, like, I'm gonna call it the Disney live action effect, where like the CGI looks fine. It doesn't look super real, but it also doesn't look bad, like bad CGI. It just looks like kind of smooth, and it's weird because CGI nowadays just feels like it doesn't look like bad CGI. It's actually good CGI. But it's still CGI, if that makes sense. So that was really my only middle, because it didn't really take away from me that much. And actually, I thought a lot of it was pretty good. If I had to really nitpick with a low, I just wish that we had kind of checked in with the antagonist, the villain, 1 or 2 times throughout. I won't say who it is because I didn't even realize, because I may have only seen one of the trailers. I didn't even know who the villain was going to be, but they have it in the trailer. So if you haven't seen the trailer, it was honestly kind of a surprise to me. So I'm just going to leave that unsaid. But I kind of just wish that we checked in on them like 1 or 2 times throughout, like during the middle. They're in the beginning a lot, and then we kind of just don't check in with them for a while. So it's kind of like, what are they doing? That's really it. So overall, I thought that they did such a good job translating this. As just a moviegoer, I thought this was super fun. I was cracking up the whole time. It was so well done. It was emotional, but it was funny. As somebody who's played D&D a few times, I can see how they did this really, really well. And it looks like they're going to be making a sequel. They haven't said anything for sure, but just from the end and how they kind of wrap things up, it seemed like it could go for another movie or 2. And honestly, I'd be totally okay with that, because this was super fun, and I want to watch it again. And honestly, this taught me that you can have a fantasy that is good and also not extremely gritty, like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or The Green Knight. Like The Hobbit was questionable in that respect because it was more kiddish, but I've had my defense of that, and you know that. With movies like this, you kind of know what I mean, where like you see the trailer, like this looks passable at best. It was great, and it didn't have to be dark and gritty and violent. It could just be fun and for the family and still be really, really great and adventurous. I'm going to give Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves a 3.5 out of 4. Well, guys, let me know what you thought of Dungeons & Dragons, and drop down in the comments below what your characters are when you play campaigns, or like which ones you've had. What's your craziest D&D story about how derailed your party and your quest got? I want to know, because those are so much fun. And as always, keep your hopes at 20, your lows at 1, and movies a solid 10. I'll see you guys later.